Hey YouTube, it's your girl Dr. J, and I thought I would come and do a quick video and talk about why art was added into STEM. When STEM started, it stood for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math. And within the last 12 to 18 months, we've seen an expansion of the definition to include art. So now it's STEAM, which stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, and Math. And a lot of people wonder, well, why was art added into there? Was it just throwing things together? But it really wasn't. It really made a lot of sense to make sure that art was also a part of STEM. And that's because you really can't have one without the other. Art is an integral part of understanding science, technology, engineering, and math. And I'm going to give a few examples. The first example I'm going to talk about is music, which is a part of the arts. And anyone who spent any time in music, or you have a child that's learning a musical instrument, or you learn a musical instrument, you understand really quickly that music is intricately tied to math. For instance, we have things like these, something like this, reading notes and time signatures, and how many beats in a measure, and how many, what gets the beat. That's what we get in our time signature. And then with how many counts does a note get, and understanding that a quarter note is always a quarter note. Every time you see it, it is a quarter note. A half note is always a half note. Every time you see it, it is a half note. It does not change. The same with rests. And as you learn to read music, you know that the areas they don't change. You're going to have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Now you can have sharps and you can have flats, but an A is an A, and it doesn't change. And when you start to read music, you see pretty quickly that music looks very much like an abacus, and so if we look at it as lines and spaces, so okay, well, I'm gonna have my C major, and then I'm gonna have my B and my A, and it's so similar to an abacus where this is the ones, this is the tens, this is the hundreds, this is the thousands. They don't change. That's the same with music. Once you can read music, you can read music. Just like once you can add, you just know how to add. That's the same with reading music. So it's very consistent, just like math. Another thing that's very consistent is pattern recognition. When you start to read music and you start to understand patterns, it just gets so much easier. And that is the same thing that we try to teach children in math. When you understand the pattern, it just gets easier. When you understand the order of operations, everything just gets easy after that. And the same with music. When you understand the order, whether it's violin and the strings, or piano and the keys, or clarinet or violin, or it doesn't matter. Once you can read music, once you understand the order, once you understand what those notes are representing, that's the same thing with math. It's what those numbers are representing at the time. So music intricately tied to math. I mean, if your child is learning an instrument, they know fractions. They know quarter, half, full. They understand an eighth, a 16th. They get it, and so it's just so aligned with it. Another area of art that is absolutely necessary for understanding math. This is a problem that was in my daughter's math book. We're doing Math Mammoth, and it was asking her to complete a pattern. So she had to use specific colors and to complete a pattern. And the reason why they wanted her to do that is because once you can see patterns, you can do algebra, you can do calculus, you can do geometry, if you can see the pattern. seeing the pattern and understanding the symmetry that comes with pattern, and getting the ability to predict what should come next to make it have an even flow. That's what we see in math. That's what we also see in art. And so they just go together so well. Another area where art is absolutely needed in technology is when you see patterns. Like a lot of people who are really into tech, a lot of techie people, they're inventing, they're creating things all the time. And this is a book that I have, how to make pattern drawings. My kids like inventions and stuff, and this book, shows people how to do the necessary drawings in order to apply for a patent. Why is that important? Because when you apply for a patent with the patent office, you don't turn in the thing that you created, you turn in a drawing of the thing that you created. And it has to be accurate, because what you draw, what you submit, that's what your patent is on. So if you leave out some doohickey that really needs to be there, and then somebody else looks at your patent and see that you left out that really important doohickey, they get to apply for a patent. They drew it right. It is correct. It is new. It is different. They get the patent and you don't, because you didn't understand the significance of art and being able to take what's in your mind and put it on paper so that other people can see it and experience it and understand it. That is, it is so very important. And if we take art out of that and we just have people doing these really cerebral things and just, jotting down formulas and, just ideas and not making it visual, they're going to miss out on a lot of understanding. For instance, up until we had Hubble, most of the pictures that people saw of space, they thought, oh, this is what space looks like. No, those were artists' renderings of what space looks like. Now that we have such, now that we have Hubble and we're about to have James Webb up there and taking these brilliant photographs, we see just how amazing space really looks. But our only understanding of what space looked like came from artist renderings. And so they had to understand astrophysics and to be able to really give us visuals. One of the reasons why people just love the Cosmos program that's on the original Cosmos as well as the new Cosmos with Neil deGrasse Tyson is because of the visuals, the stunning visuals that are taking place. A lot of those are going to be artist renderings, our ideas of what it may look like, because we haven't had an opportunity to get close enough. When something is 1,000 light years away, we sometimes don't even have space vehicles that can get there, let alone something that can go and take pictures and send them back. And so we have to have people who can look at these dots on the page, these blips of light that are coming in these models that are streaming from Kepler and other vehicles, and be able to say, okay, this is what Kepler is seeing. Even though we don't have a picture of what Kepler is seeing, this is what Kepler is seeing. This is what we know from these blips on the screen and these dots on the page. And so that's another reason why art is integral, because if we didn't have artists, scientists, we would not really be able to get a visual of some really important concepts. Another area where artist renderings often comes in to play, this is a elements chart, and most people have the different elements, but there are some elements like krypton and neon and argon and helium, where these you can't see them. And so being able to have an artist rendering where we can kind of get a feel for what it really means, and how do you see a odorless, formless, colorless gas? You can't. A lot of times we can see the reaction that the gas is producing, but how do we have this way to kind of visualize what's happening that we can't see? And a lot of that comes from artists that understand science, or scientists that understand art. And so those areas are just so intertwined, because being able to see something visually, being able to see what's taking place, that is so important. And you got to remember, we've only had these, really, nano, micro, chips and cameras and stuff that can go into these really small spaces. Everything else was just kind of, what we thought it might look like. And the fact that now that we have this nanotechnology and we're able to see things magnified to, thousands of times larger than they actually are, and we're seeing that, wow, some artist renderings were really close to what was really happening. Another thing we see this in is with anatomy. Y'all know I love my anatomy flashcards and those sort of things. These just really intricate pictures, and this is an artist rendering of what that piece of the human body looks like. I don't necessarily want cadavers, in my living room and my kids cutting up cadavers. I'm cool with a picture in a lot of areas. I don't necessarily, need to see this up close and personal. So, a lot of times being able to have a good artist rendering, that just makes things so much easier to digest and understand. And when we had for so long, and we still have a lot of times in traditional school settings, where people are saying that art isn't important, and it's like it's an extracurricular activity. Math is important, but art isn't important. But guess what? If visuals can better help me understand math, why wouldn't we use it? Especially when we have things like music, which parallels music to a T, and not only, like, when a child grabs an instrument and they play a scale or they play a song, they get to see math in motion and what math is about. Math is beautiful. It is stunningly beautiful. But if we just leave it on the page and don't allow that beauty to shine forth by showing those patterns and showing what the math is representing, and even just doing things like aligning it with music and showing, to show music written out, to show what Chopin's piece look like, that makes things so much more real and tangible. And when we have science that people can see, it's who wants to have a lesson in the solar system where you just hear about the planets but you don't really know what they look like? That's no fun. And I can't see it with the naked eye, and I can't even really see it with a really good telescope. I need somebody to show me a picture. What does Saturn look like? What does Jupiter look like? What does the Kuiper Belt look like? And when you can see it and you just look back amazed and stunned, and especially as you go out of our solar system and get to see places that you would never in a million years ever get to see, but you can experience it because there's an artist who can make that model come to life for you and for me. And it's amazing. Architecture, we talk about engineering and technology, but before a building comes up, somebody has to draw it. Somebody has to draw it out and look at it. We can't just go out there and just start banging nails into wood and say, okay, this is going to be a building. We have to really model it out and scale it out and see what it's supposed to be. A lot of times being able to make scaled down models, we can see errors, we can see where there's things that, okay, we really didn't think about that possibility. Being able to test something on the small scale to see how wind resistant a building might be, or see how big of a tornado this building can take. Those things are so important, and that is where art comes in. If we try to separate art from science, if we try to separate art from math, or we try to belittle art when compared to engineering, or belittle art when compared to math, we are just going to get ourselves in trouble, because all the four major areas, they take creativity. They take being able to take what's in your mind and make it come to life on paper. And art is the channel by which those things happen. And so that's really the reason why art was included. And with art, it's not just, visual art, but it's music, it's all those kind of areas that we would consider the arts. People go, well, what does dance have to do with it? Well, dance has to do with it because a lot of times, you guys know, I talk with my body, my hands, all that kind of stuff, but it's really an opportunity to kind of show and feel and experience. I know Yas Love is enough. She did a video showing how she was teaching her daughter how to count by using the hand, and going like ones, tens, hundreds, comma, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, comma, million, 10 million, 100 million. And I was like, that is so fascinating, using the body to help understand. And she talked about, why we have that base 10 system, is because, we have these 10 fingers. I was like, that's it. That understanding that you use what you have and you always have your body. And that helps us understand all these other things that kind of are out of reach unless we use our imagination to capture them and make them real. So that's why art got put into STEM and it became STEAM. And so that's why it's been something that's really important in my household, and will continue to be. I'm really glad that it's being embraced on a larger scale, and people are starting to see it. I do think it's going to take a little bit more time before people start to really integrate these things to the level that they probably should be integrated. But for now, I'll just be happy with what I can get, which is the fact that art is being associated with the four major areas that we want to focus on with kids. So hope this helps. This is Dr. J, and I'm out. Bye-bye.